Hi, Ryan. Thanks for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, happy to be here. My name's Ryan, and I was previously your coworker at Anaplan, but yeah, I'm 33 years old and living in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Obviously, I'm not there right now, but yeah, I'm just happy to help out and talk about space with you.
And in fact, just before we started recording, you mentioned you were in Florida and you saw the last two launches from there.
I did, yeah. So the first one I saw from like New Smyrna Beach, which is right near Daytona Beach, which is only about 25 miles north of Cape Canaveral or the Kennedy Space Center. And it was a really cool thing because it was like a 9:45 launch, and it was a really interesting experience. We walked out to the beach and looked south towards Kennedy Space Center where the launch is happening, and it's hard to describe the feeling, but there was just this massive feeling of unity. Like there were so many people on the beach and everybody's there for the same reason. We're all looking the same way to watch this amazing thing, like a rocket taking off and getting launched into space, which was, I don't know, it was a really cool feeling where like everybody just kind of unites together for the same cause. And yeah, it was special. I'll never forget that. And then the other one was yesterday, which I just watched right from the deck here, which was cool in itself. We didn't quite, it didn't last quite as long, a little bit further away. I'm down near like West Palm Beach right now, but it's crazy, still this far away, you can still see it. Even though the rockets aren't as big as they used to be, I didn't know if we'd be able to see it down here, but yeah, it was cool.
And talking about rockets being as big as they used to be, if you could be down there in June, you might really see something spectacular.
What's going on in June?
So it's the first test of the Space Launch System, which is the rocket that's going to take people to the moon.
Wow.
And they're doing an uncrewed, launch, but it has like the two solid rocket boosters like the shuttle had. It has four of their main engines instead of three. So it should be quite loud and bright and everything. So
Wow, that would be insane. Have you been to the Kennedy Space Center?
I have. I went there last September to watch the Inspiration 4 launch, and that was actually the first and last rocket launch that I've seen.
Wow. Well, so I've officially seen more than the great
Yes.
Nathan Price.
Yes. And if those were the only two you've seen, you've like 100% more.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I thought the Kennedy Space Center was so cool. I felt like a kid again going there. I mean, you're just like in awe. They've got the rocket garden, and then being able to see, I think it was the Atlantis, which was in commission. It flew like 30 some missions, the shuttle. It was so cool just to be able to read up and kind of learn about all that stuff and see like the actual stuff in person. You could almost reach out and touch the Atlantis. So that it was, yeah, I thought it was super neat. I was trying to do my homework, before coming on your countdown to the moon.
That's awesome. But I mean, what comes in your mind whenever you see those rocket launches and kind of the Kennedy Space Center in terms of sort of, I mean, does it like envision for you some type of future for humanity, or I mean, like what kind of effect does it have on you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm I'm kind of like a sci-fi nerd. I'm not like a Trekkie or like really big into stuff like that, but I do think, to even expand your question, I do think there's life out there somewhere. I mean, if with the size of the galaxy, there's not even the galaxy. There's just space in general, the universe. There's got to be life, and it might not be aliens with big eyes and green heads or anything, but like organisms living on another planet or somewhere. But I do think that we've come so far since we even just learned how to fly, and even my parents' generation, we weren't on the moon. We weren't in space. when they were born, and technology is only advancing at a faster and faster rate ever since then. So I'd have to believe that humanity will be, expand beyond the reach of Earth in our lifetime. Whether that's the moon or Mars or just like a legit colony, like the International Space Station-esque kind of thing. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. I mean, we have some of the brightest and best minds in the country, working on the space endeavors. So, yeah, I'm excited and curious to see, what comes next.
Did you know that NASA is planning to send astronauts to the moon again for the first time since 1972?
Yeah, somebody really smart told me that once upon a time. I used to work with them, but before that, I did not know. So that's exciting. Yeah, and like 2024 is when they're sending is that when they're sending like the first trip around the moon, not on the moon necessarily, but out, and around the moon since the last time we were there?
And that's right. I mean, originally, whenever I started this project, 2024 is supposed to be when we were on the moon, actually stepping on the moon. And so that got postponed to 2025. So that's been kind of awkward, but.
So you have to do a whole another year of countdowns. Is that what you're saying?
I'm like counting down to the end of 2024, regardless of what happens. So that's.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if it keeps getting pushed back, you got your work cut out for you.
I'll be in the old age home. I hope not.
No, you're fine. You're good.
But yeah. That's an interesting point. Most of the people I talk to say what you say. I didn't know about it until you told me. And, thinking about how we get our news and how we're informed has changed a lot since the first time we went to the moon. We don't all read the same newspapers. We don't watch the same TV programs. We are literally on completely different pages when we are thinking about the state of the world.
Yeah, that's something that I've actually was talking about with my parents down here on vacation, because they grew up watching the news and reading the newspaper, right? So the news came to them, and I feel like my generation, not many people watch the news or read the newspaper, but we go and search out our news. So we go to a website, or we watch videos or clips or whatever it might be to become informed. And if we're not out there looking up space news or interested in some of that stuff, like, we're just not going to be informed of it unless it's a big headline somewhere that circumvents the globe. It's not something that will just kind of fall into our laps. We have to go out and find it. So yeah, it's changed quite a bit, and I think that's probably the reason why a lot of people don't know that we're going back to the moon. Plus, it's not what it used to be. Like, I feel like everybody knows that there's a plan to go to Mars, right? We have the rovers on Mars. You see images of that stuff. Like, that's, I would say people view that as progress, where it's like the moon, we did that 50 years ago. Not that exciting anymore, but it's a huge feat. It's exciting. It's pretty wild when you actually think of it, and being at the Kennedy Space Center just puts things into perspective too. Just being able to like see things and read about things and hear the stories or the journey. It's like, wow, that is absolutely crazy that we were able to accomplish that even 50, 60 years ago, but it's still a huge accomplishment today.
Yeah, in fact, if we wanted to go to the moon at this very instant, we could not.
Why is that?
We just, don't have the hardware built, test it. It's, we're working on it. We have the system to get us around the moon. We don't have the thing to get us from the lunar orbit to the surface of the moon yet.
That's true. I guess it's kind of weird to think about it. Like, the technology that we used is obsolete. Like, we don't have the same means that we did before. It's changed so much. So we have to kind of start from square one to build out that, what is that going to look like? How do we get from this spaceship, this rocket, whatever you want to call it, down to the surface of the moon and then back up? I honestly, I didn't even think of that. I thought it's like, oh yeah, we just have to train and like all these things, but that they really, so there's like no idea right now of how we're going to do that. I have to imagine that there's been like not mock-ups, but they have to have some sort of idea how they're doing it right now, right?
Yeah, that's true. About a year and a half ago, NASA had a competitive bid proposal project where like, we're not going to build the thing that takes you from the orbit down to the surface and back up. Instead, we're going to have private companies come up with ideas. And so 3 private companies came up with ideas. One led by Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin, called the national team, that included lots and lots of other companies, Dynetics and SpaceX. And basically, they wanted to choose 2 of them, but they only got funding to choose half of one. So SpaceX was by far the cheapest, because they are building this thing called the Starship down in South Texas, and they want to use that to also take the astronauts from orbit down to the surface of the moon. So they won the bid. That got challenged by the national team, the Blue Origin and Jeff Bezos, and it went through all the appeals process. And finally, all the appeals got denied. And so right now the plan is for SpaceX to develop a version of their Starship that would be in orbit around the moon. The Orion capsule would dock with that. Astronauts would transfer over to that. That would take them down to the surface and back up. So
that's crazy. So I saw Blue Origin. They have like their little warehouse across from the Kennedy Space Center. Like when you turn into the visitor center, you see this like Blue Origin. And I was like, oh, crazy.
It's like, but so strategic, so strategic, to have it right there. You're like, is this the Space Center? That is the question they want you to be asking when they built that building.
Exactly. That's not by coincidence. But then, so I'm familiar with SpaceX and I was familiar with Blue Origin, but then you said this third one was
Dynetics. Yeah.
Dynetics.
Dynetics. Yeah. They're actually a well-established aerospace company that's developed lots of the engines and spacecraft that have been used through the program. Behind NASA, there's maybe dozens of aerospace manufacturers that a lot of people may not be aware of, because NASA actually doesn't build things themselves. They put together the requirements and contract it out to companies to build.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I never heard of them, but I mean, it makes sense. It's, I guess I've only heard of SpaceX and Blue Origin because Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and they're in the news about so many other things. So, I've got a quick question for you.
Okay.
What is your favorite space movie? Or I'll widen that to like series as well, if you want to just like throw out a series instead of a movie.
Yeah, I have a bit of a libertarian bent as well. So I had to go with Serenity and Firefly as my kind of favorite.
What a cult following. I own Serenity and Firefly, and I love that one season was not enough. And then the movie to wrap it all up. But yeah, I respect that. I would say my favorite is, I like Interstellar. That's like my favorite space movie right now. It's kind of wild. Makes you think.
Do you remember that clip where the daughter gets in trouble for claiming that the moon landings were real?
Yes.
I saw that again, just by itself. I was just like, whoa, can you imagine getting to that state as a society where
I feel like not to digress too much, but I feel like some parts of the world are already in, that kind of a state, where their media is controlled and they're led to believe certain things. Anyway, back to Space Hawk.
Yeah. So what do you think about us going back to the moon?
I think it's a good question. It's a broad question. I can go a lot of directions with this. I think it's a good idea. I think if we have any hopes or plans to live on Mars, colonize Mars, to do it, you know, to colonize any other planet or whatever, not like we would live on an asteroid or anything, but even just to visit an asteroid, you know, being able to get people on the ground and back to their spaceship. I think it's a good idea. I mean, the moon is the closest planet, or not planet, but I guess what would you call it? It's the closest thing in orbit. Is there like a name for that? Like
I mean, a very generic word could be like body, you know, astronomical body.
Yeah. So you know what I mean, though. It's like the closest thing out there. So if we're gonna practice, on something, you know, it'd be good to do it on the moon. And I'm sure there's a lot of other benefits, right? We're not just doing it to be like, well, we're gonna practice here. I'm sure there's a lot of studies and scientific, you know, research that can be done. It can be beneficial. A lot of it, I have no idea. I'm unaware to what it might be, but I think it's a great thing.
Why do you think it's great? I mean, like, it's going to cost a lot, and a lot of people are like, you know, that money that it costs has been spent a million different ways in people's minds. But I mean, like, if you were talking to somebody that didn't agree that it was a great thing, like, how would that conversation go?
Well, I think that in the grand scheme of things, I don't know what the budget is. Like, NASA is government funded, right? So
yeah,
what are all the other things that the government spends money on? And if you were to take a look at like the American people and all the tax revenue that the government gets, how much of that's actually going to NASA as opposed to other things. And, you know, as far as why it's a good idea, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't like the MRI basically derived from NASA research and other medical advancemment or technological advancements? We wouldn't have GPS right now if it wasn't for NASA. So you ask me who can survive without those things in today's world. Yeah, not many people would say they could. So, you know, who knows what the next step, the next frontier is when it comes to advancements in technology and science and just understanding the universe. And if the answer is out there on the surface of the moon or the surface of Mars, you know, you have to invest in it, and you have to be curious. So I think that's why it's a good idea. I mean, if you Nate said, I think this is a bad idea, we shouldn't do this, I don't want to waste my money on this, like, how much money would you get back to be like, I'm not going to fund NASA? Like, how much money would actually be in your pocket? You know, $2, $5, $10, like the price to pay for the advancements in science and technology and whatever else, just the knowledge that comes out of these explorations or expeditions, I think is worth it.
Yeah, but you know, that's a good question. Just to find out what your perception is. If you were to look at the federal budget, what percentage of that do you think is spent on NASA?
Ooh, I should have done more homework. I'm going to say it's probably, I don't know, 3%, 1%.
And the other question is, what percentage do you think should be spent on NASA?
I think I don't even know. I feel like I'm a terrible American for not even knowing like what our GDP is and tax revenue and all that stuff. I think 1%. Like that would be a sweet spot. Like maybe half a percent realistically, but being naive and everything probably costs way more than I think it does. I would say like 1%, right? Because like the whole world benefits from some of the things and that we discover, the knowledge that we get from this. And I know the Russians have a space program. We have a space program. There's other countries that have probably launched satellites. China or whoever. There's other countries that have the capabilities, but not many. It's got to be only like a handful. So I do think though that it maybe should be something that's also subsidized by other. No, that's just not fair. I don't know. Not like other countries should have to pay for access to the knowledge that we gain. We're a human race. We're humanity, and we're trying to better humanity, and we have the means to do so. So then the question becomes, well, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, the last time I checked, it was just under 0.5%. So you're very close on your assessment.
Nice.
Let's see. I had a great question pop in my head, but I lost it. Okay. If it was safe and affordable, would you take a trip to space?
Yes, I would. How amazing would that be? Can I bring a flat earther with me?
You can, but I have a theory about flat earthers. I have a theory they really want to go to space, and their goal is to get somebody to take them for free.
Yeah, right. Like, I'm gonna prove you wrong.
They're like, okay.
No, I totally would. I've also had that thought cross my mind. Like, nah, these people are just in it so that when the time comes, they'll be proven wrong, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, wow. No, I would totally go to space. I who knows what that would look like when that time comes. Would you be taken off from a runway? Like, what technological advancements are going to happen between now and when that's just like a thing? Now, I think of space as more than just being at like the tippy top of Earth's atmosphere, where you're way up there, however high that is, 60,000 feet, whatever it is, and you can see the curvature of the Earth and all that stuff. I think of space as being like, you're out there, you're up there, space station, you're up there, not necessarily hanging out and staying, but would I love to get on a rocket and go stay at a space hotel that literally orbits the Earth and fly back down the next day? Like, yeah. And am I going to be strapped in? And did you do the launch experience at the Kennedy Space Center where they strap you in? Yeah, like, I thought they took it a little easy on us, right? I feel like it's definitely more intense than that. But I did that, and I was like, I just want to know what the real thing is like. Put me on a rocket ship. But maybe by the time we have space hotels and people are doing that, you'll literally get into something very much like an airplane today, and then just take off, and it's not like that jolty G3 launch experience. But yeah, I would totally do it. I like to explore. I love to explore. I've been all over the country, and I've traveled parts of the Earth, and why stop there? I'd love to go to space.
So how soon do you think that is? That you'll be able to hop onto a vehicle and go to an orbital hotel?
$30 years. Maybe that's what I'll do for myself when I retire. I'll give myself like a retirement gift and go spend a night in a space hotel.
It sounds good. Yeah.
I know you would do it. I don't even have to ask if you would do it. I know you'd go to space and stay in a space hotel.
Yeah, I think I would like to. I mean, it'd be good to feel like it's safe, to see it operational many times.
You don't want to be the first trip up.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe
Yeah, I'm sure they make you sign waivers and stuff.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure. But if you don't come back, what's the point of the waiver?
That's true.
Would you consider immigrating to Mars? Elon talks about building a 1 million person city on Mars by 2050.
I would say no, but like right now, I'm not married. I don't have, if I fast forward my life to 2050, 2060, whenever, as we're trying to populate Mars, if I have nothing here on Earth that's holding me back, and I can't think of enough excuses not to, but like if I could be of value on Mars, starting a new colony or whatever it might be, like that may be, why stay here? Maybe I'm bored out of my mind and I I could be of use, but I would say probably not. That's just wild to think about, though. It's one of those things that like I can't even comprehend it until it actually happens, until that's an actual possibility. But I would have to stick with probably not. No, would you?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of like the appeal of, being part of that foundation that allowed for the next kind of like expansion of humanity. I mean, that's like historical. And, whenever you realize how insignificant we all are in the big scheme of things, it's kind of alluring to do something that would potentially be historical. I mean, there would be descendants that would be like, your great-great-grandfather came over here when it was just started. You're a
like
son
coming to America.
You're a son of the first settlers.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be a crazy thing like that. But we don't know. Look at 20 years ago. I mean, 2050, we'll just say that, or 30 years. So look at 30 years ago, 1990, and just where we were as a society compared to today, and how different it is. I don't even know what it's going to look like in 2050 here. So it's hard to commit to something and say yes or no, because I feel like there's so many great things to come. Just on our planet. You're talking about going to a whole nother planet. I don't know. There's too many variables.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about like 30 years ago, internet wasn't commonplace. Computers
it wasn't
weren't
mainstream.
common. Yeah,
Yep.
Laptops were really not a thing at that time. And I don't think bottled water was a thing at the time, just thinking back.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, and obviously some of the other big things like GPS wasn't, the military had access to it, but it wasn't a mainstream thing. MapQuest, we all remember those days. Not we all, but you and I certainly do. Cell phones, some of the obvious things. Just who knows?
It's kind of amazing. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for your time. I know we covered a lot of things. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about, or any other questions you had?
Luckily I know how to reach out to you in the event that something comes up later that I think of, but I got nothing right now. I was just excited to hop on and catch up with you. And how are things going for you? You've moved on to bigger and better things. I was telling when I was at the Kennedy Space Center with my mom, they have like this mock-up of the International Space Station, and I was like, this is what my friend is doing. And I was explaining, basically what your job is and all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, I know him. I know him. Yeah. He works at NASA.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how's the new gig?
It has been amazing. So the first week I was here, I was just, getting stuff set up. but got the opportunity to do a couple of on-the-job training sessions, OJT. They call it what we would call shadowing at Anaplan. And one of those was actually getting to sit at the console and mission control for like the real operations. So I was sitting next to the person that was in that position. And I swear, whenever I opened the doors to go into mission control, I could hear like the choir playing the birch. I really felt like so magical just to like go into that space. I'd seen it so much on TV, and I kind of imagine what it's like, but to actually be there while it was like actually functioning, just was amazing. And you have like these headsets connected to these systems, and you have a whole bunch of different audio channels. Like you have 4 space to ground channels that the astronauts are using. You have the flight controllers channel. You have the several coordination channels, and then you have some that are specific for your particular discipline that you're connected to people. And so you can like tune in to multiple of those channels, kind of tune up the volume, turn down the volume so that you're paying more or less attention to those things. And it's just lots of information. I mean, I feel like that if you were able to go into a person's brain and see like the neurons like operate and stuff, that's essentially what you're seeing whenever you are looking at mission control, is this network of hundreds of people all kind of working on pieces of the same puzzle, trying to coordinate each other, and seeing that activity and interaction is just mind-blowing, really. But
wow. Yeah. What would you say would be the biggest accomplishment to date of the in NASA and its history?
Wow, biggest accomplishment to date. I mean, the one with the biggest like political, cultural impact would have to be the moon landing. I was just at the airport on Sunday, actually, in New York City, or Newark, New Jersey, really. And, up there's a picture of, I probably Buzz on the moon, just, right next to the lunar excursion module. And, I mean, that image is like all over the place. Those moon pictures, I think, is like the biggest kind of cultural impact. In terms of kind of scientific and technological impacts, I would say the International Space Station would probably be the biggest kind of accomplishment in terms of, you have 15 countries that are partners. You have modules that were built in Europe, in Japan, in the US, and Russia that never fitted together for the first time until they were actually put in space. And they were able to get it all to work. So that was kind of neat. And that's on the human space flights side. When you look on the robotics side, I mean, the Voyager spacecrafts are beyond the sun's heliosphere, or out in interstellar space at this point. You have the Mars rovers, you have probes to Jupiter and Saturn. It's just really amazing. I mean, that's also another thing to consider is, of that, little less than 0.5%, only half of that is on human space flight. The other half is robotic and aviation, which is another kind of area that NASA works in, is around aviation.
Yeah. Interesting fact I learned is that like the one of the smaller satellites that are in space right now is about the size of this water bottle. I think of a satellite as it's got those big panels like the International Space Station, whatever they are, solar, whatever, and a dish. And obviously that's not the case. It's just these teeny little things that are orbiting the Earth, doing whatever they do, pictures or transmitting data. But then there's also things like the James Webb telescope, and that's just wild. I can't wait to see what we can learn from that, and almost essentially look into the past because of its power and scope. So it's kind of a wild world that we live in. I feel like people are almost numb, more numb to the fact that we're doing all these amazing things in space, because it's not just the first time that we're doing it. Like when we landed on the moon, that was a huge moment in the history of civilization. And now we shoot stuff up all the time. We had 2 launches within a week of each other, and it's just like, it's almost normalized. But what's going to be that next big thing that captivates the civilization? Are we gonna find aliens? Is it going to be landing and colonizing Mars? Are people even going to be that impressed by that? Or is it just going to be a normalized thing? Like, yeah, we've got people living on another planet now, like, big deal. So I'm curious to see what's to come.
We also have people living in, this place in the world, it's like whatever. Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. I think whenever we land on the moon, there's going to be large portions of humanity that have no clue. Like, it'd just be so far in like the noise of their world that they won't hear it. And very likely, having people go to Mars would be the same thing. I would think aliens would actually be one of those things that would be like, oh my gosh, especially if they were like, one of those like visiting extraterrestrials taking over the world type of thing. That would be a very kind of,
we just get finished with the pandemic and then the aliens come, right?
It's like we were, that was sort of like the just the weekend you, so that you're ready for us, or whatever.
Ooh, wow, conspiracy theorists, look out.
Yeah.
Well, I should probably let you get to work, huh? Because you're in Central Time. You got to start your day soon.
Yeah, indeed, I gotta go. But if we should end on some other note other than conspiracy theorist, so I have one last question for you. So let's say that your descendants do go to Mars, and you're a great grandchild is on Mars, grew up on Mars her entire life, is in high school, and has to write a history paper about the 2020s. And she comes online, does some research, finds this video. Is there anything about the 2020s that you think would be good to include in that paper?
Oh man, the 2020s. What? I don't know what good has happened. Even just thinking back to 2020, which is a little more than a year ago. But if we look at like the start of 2020, before the pandemic really hit, Australia was on fire. I would like to think that if I can even look forward to the rest of the 2020s that hasn't happened yet, that things change for the better of humanity when we're talking environmental, just the environmental consciousness of society, the world, took a turn for better, because I feel like we've been kind of just destroying the world to this point, and there's awareness on it now, but I don't think enough is happening to correct it. And I think that hopefully, we're not killing the planet and making it uninhabitable. But I would like to think that that we're making progress in that aspect, and there's a lot more awareness on it. And who knows what other good things are going to come out of the 2020s. We still got a solid 8 years left, Nate. So, I got my fingers crossed that we've got some tricks up our sleeve here, and there's going to be a lot of good news coming out of this. But it's been looking pretty bleak.
Yeah. I mean, that's the key thing about exceeding expectations, right? There's two knobs you get to turn, right? One is, what are those expectations, and what's the reality? I think we really lowered the bar. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, the next 8 years should be really awesome compared to the last 2.
Can't get much worse.
Yeah. Okay, well, Ryan, thank you so much. You have a good rest of your day.
Hey, it has been a pleasure. Thanks, Nathan. You take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.